So what happens here is, let's first look at my Kerberos, right? So I'm just saying KRB. Kerberos, I'm saying KRB. What it has, we are not talked here, right? So I have a client. That client could be your SSH client or any client. I want to talk to some service. Let's say I want to SSH to some another node, maybe SSH server, or let's say I want to access some HTTP service, web service, anything, right? So first thing here is, your Kerberos will be internal to an organization. I cannot have a Kerberos outside my environment. Means, let's say I'm trying to access Google's website, and I cannot say, okay, Google has Kerberized its website, right, google.com, so I will be able to access from my browser at home. No, right? So Kerberos is within an intranet, within your organization, because you need to distribute your keys, right? Google will not distribute the key to us for connecting it, right? So what it is doing, it is an internal network. So let's say I want to talk to this SSH server. Client wants to connect to SSL server. So what it does, it has to go to a third party before first and get a token. It will get a token, right? It will send token. Then it will connect here by using that token. So that's why this is a third party sitting in any two communication. So that's why we are saying Kerberos is a third party component or a third party tool. So third party, don't think that it's a tool by some another company outside of these Hadoop and all. Third party here is referring to the operation here, right? It's a third element sitting. How we have seen in our certificate signing, CA will be our third party. We are generating a key, getting it signed by a CA, and CA is the one which is the third party. So here, important thing to note here is, these two nodes, they don't talk to each other. They don't talk to each other. SSH server will not be talking to the Kerberos directly, right? So what it will do, if a client wants to talk to any application server, let's say SSH or HTTP, it will go to Kerberos and say, give me a ticket, I want to go there. So it will take a ticket and go there. So now let's look into this part here, what this Kerberos actually contains. So now I have drawn a simple picture of where I said Kerberos, but what Kerberos actually has is, so Kerberos, when we say, it has a main server controller, which we called it as KDC, Kerberos Distribution Center, right? It's a Kerberos Distribution Center. It has two parts, right? So let me show you here, right? So this one, right? There's a slide here which I've shown here, right? So it has, this is your KDC, Kerberos. It has two parts. One is your authentication server, AS, and other is ticket granting server or ticket granting service. And everything is stored in a database. So this is what I'm explaining. See, app server is never talking here. Client is going here, here, and then going here, right? So what its operation is doing. So my KDC has authentication server and a ticket granting server or a service, right? So when the client comes first time, let's say I have a client, it will go to authentication server, authenticates itself. When it authenticates, it just checks its username, and then this sends back a token. It takes this token, goes to TGT. TGT is TGS is a ticket granting service. So what it gives you, gives it back, it gives back again a token. So this token is called TGT, ticket granting ticket. So it takes this TGT and goes to any service it wants to connect to, right? Taking this, right? There are a lot of details here, but this is a very simplistic operation. So important thing to keep in mind here is in each operation, so there are three interactions which are happening. Client interacts with the authentication server, client interacts with the ticket granting service, client interacts with whatever service it wants, like SSH or HTTP. Similarly, in our case, the same thing will happen. My client, which is an HDFS client, might need to talk to a name node. So first it will go to AS, then it will go to TGS, then it will go to name node. Similarly for data node, right? It will get, once it gets a token, then it can reuse that token for certain period, right? 8 hours by default. It does not mean that for each operation it has to go and take a ticket. Let's say I have a file which file has 1000 blocks, so it doesn't mean that it will go to 1000 times to that KDC server. It will go the first time for the first block, gets a ticket token. Once it gets that token, it can access multiple blocks using that token, valid token, right, for that particular client. So right, so this is what it is doing, right? So important points to keep in mind is each interaction. So as I said, there are three interactions: one with the AS, one with the KDS, one with the one with the TGS, and one with the actual service. So each service, each interaction which we have here will share two messages. One message which the client can decrypt, the other message which client cannot decrypt, right? So when AS is talking here, right, so when, let's say, this is talking here, so it is sending back a token here, right? So there will be actually two parts to this token. Actually there will be two tokens here. One token which this client can decrypt, one token which it cannot decrypt, right? So same thing, the token which is carrying forward, it's the one which it cannot decrypt, right? So it's sending the token which it got forward here. Similarly here, the TGT is sending forward to the other service is the one which he cannot decrypt, so that he's not able to modify or play around with any information inside that. But one part it can decrypt. So a lot of details here, maybe you can read online. So this is the important thing to keep in mind. Three interactions. Each interaction will have two messages, one message which the client can decrypt, one which cannot, right? So let's look into now the installation part. So first we'll be setting the Kerberos server. DB is a database, right? So yeah, so I missed here DB, right? So DB is a database. It's a Kerberos internal database where it will be storing the users which we create. Let's say the users means the principals which we create: host principal, user principal, service principal. So where it needs to store somewhere, right? So Kerberos has its internal database, so it will store in that internal database, right? So I will show you that. So now let's install Kerberos here, right? So first thing, again, we make sure we check here is date. Very important thing, date should be same, time should be same. Date, rather, date could be 24 hours difference, but time should be exactly same. Okay, so I say yum install. So we are installing server, right? I'll say y, right? I'm saying krb5 server, right? krb5 workstation we don't need to do because it will be already installed on CentOS and Red Hat machines by default. But if it's not, you can install krb-5 by using workstation command, right? Then I need krb5 development packages. Then I need krb5-lib packages, right? These I need on a server. On a client, each node in the cluster, I don't need this server. Rest, I need all these packages. server is the only package I need on the node where I'm configuring Kerberos server. So I'm configuring on it on a repo node. So I need it just here. So I hit enter. I'm saying install. So it will simply install it. These some packages it's installing, that Kerberos service it is installing. So now it has installed Kerberos server. So now let's go back. So it will have important files krb5.conf, right? So when we install KDC Kerberos server, it will have a file called kerberos5.conf. So here I will, this is a default file which is having example here, example.com. So what I have to do, I have to change the domain to my own domain, right? So I am saying hostname cluster1.com, right? Cluster1.com is my DNS domain. So here I'm using the same domain, but the difference will be I will be using capitals. It has to be capitals, right? So I will just copy example.com and replace that with cluster1.com. I'm replacing it everywhere. Yes, it is required to be in uppercase, right? That's how realm is identified. Kerberos looks for an uppercase domain. Right? So I'm changing that. So another thing we have to do is example.com. I'm changing with, or not, I don't need to write it, com cluster1. Which let you see, look at the changes which I have made. I have changed example.com to cluster1.com. Here also I have changed it, right? I'm changing it like this because any subdomain also, let's say hostname could be nn1 nn2.cluster1.com. I can have a subdomain. All I'm mapping to a bigger cluster.com domain, realm. Which node I am configuring as my KDC, the same node which I am sitting at. Default domain is cluster1.com, and my admin server will be also on the same node, right? So Kerberos runs on 88 port, the admin server runs on 749, right? So what is an admin server here, right? So in the KDC master, which I have shown you, this components it has, right? But to control this, right, I have an interface which is called Kerberos admin or kadmin, right? Because I need to create principal or delete principal, modify principal. I have to make entries in that database, right? So kadmin is the interface using which I can make entries into Kerberos, right? This is an admin console, right? So I have kadmin, right? So I'm saying admin server is also on the same node but a different port. So these are default ports, right? 8080 is the Kerberos default port, 749 is the default admin port. So I save it. Another thing which I need to change is where Kerberos kdc.conf. Here I will also change example.com to cluster1.com. So here, this is what we are doing. If I am not patching my Java If I'm not patching my Java, I have to remove this 256 one from here, right? It will work without patching, but it will be less secure. See, 128 DS, all these are a lot of them, like for example this DES, Defi-Elman and all, these are kind of obsolete now. So it looks into this from this side, left side. So this is the most secure, then it keeps on going down. So I can remove this from here and go with unpatched Java, but 256 is the recommended way, right? So we save it. Yeah, it will look into that order, right? It will take the first one from here, left one. It will start from this side, left one, right? So if it's able to use the first one, it will use that. If not, it will go to second, third, and that order, right? But in our case, we have enabled JCE, so it will use this. It will be able to use the very first one. Now, CD where Kerberos KRB5, right? So here we are sitting on this file, right? So it has, so first thing we modified etc krb5.conf, then we modified kdc.conf. There's another file we have to modify, kadmin.acl. So here we have to write cluster1.com, right? So what this kadmin is doing, again, this is again very detailed. So I can say which host I can connect to my AD, to my kadmin command, right? So I will show you that what it is. So by default, we are connecting to Kerberos server to create principles and all from, let's say, the same node where we have installed Kerberos. But I can give here which node all it can connect from, right? It can, we can specify that, right? We can specify that. Oh, have I saved it? Okay, yeah. So VIKDC, right? So I've changed only the domain cluster1.com, VIETC Kerberos5.conf. I've changed this one, the domain. Okay. So now what we have to do, we have to do KRB. So I'm showing you all the steps because that's what meant for, let's say, training purpose. You should be knowing all this. But I have in my GitHub, I have the scripts written, right? So if you go to, let me show you this one. So I will uploaded all the scripts, right? Let's say you want to install Kerberos, you execute this script. It will install all your Kerberos server. It will set up your random number generator. It will install NTP, start all services, right? Then you do setup Kerberos.sh. It will set up Kerberos for you, all the which will be doing manually. Then all of the commands like create principal. Yeah, it has an auto renewal feature, right? So your question is, if my job is running longer than that, so Hadoop has an auto renewal feature enabled, right, in its service daemon. So it requests a renewal of a Kerberos ticket. So that job will be not fail, but it will renew its Kerberos ticket, right? So you can use all these commands here, right? So I have set up that. Okay, so now let's look what we do. First thing we do is we use KDB util, which is your Kerberos database utility. So let me show you, see the path I'm sitting at. It has only two files, KDB5 util create realm name cluster1.com -s stash file, right? So it's saying it's initializing your database, Kerberos database, and it is asking me to set up a master key for your Kerberos database. Right? Obviously, you should remember this password. So what is happening is Kerberos database itself will be encrypted, so that it should not be that anybody can connect to Kerberos database and steal your keys. So it will be encrypted with a password, right? So now if I do ls-l here, you will see it has created few new files. So these are the principles, or the what we say, the credentials for the Kerberos server itself. What is k/m? Where are you seeing? Oh, okay. That k/m here means that key and the master for that, right? Key and the master password, right? This is what it is saying, right? Key and the master password. So by default, when I'm saying this command, so it is initializing a Kerberos database, creating a principal and setting a password for it. So for that, it is using this master key. So this is a master key for your Kerberos database, right? I should never delete this from my Kerberos. I'll show you when we go to the Kerberos prompt. So I've done this. Now what I have to do is I will say kadmin.local. Kadmin.local means I'm not connecting from any node outside. I'm connecting from this node itself, right? I can press question mark. It will tell me what commands it can take, right? I can do add prince, delete prince means add principal, delete principal, modify principal, right? List principal. I can do list prince, right? So now you can see it has some principles. By default, it creates as a first step. When we do the kdb create command, so it has created a master key. It has created a kadmin, all these things, right? So now what happens is this kadmin will be having a password, right? So this password I don't know, right? Because when we executed this create admin command, it created some password and I don't know that password, right? So I can change that password. So how will I change that password? So there's a command called change password, cpw, right? So I will say for this user, I will keep a password, right? And I will also say for this one, right? Whatever password you keep, remember it, right? You can keep same here and keep a simple one because it's a lab. So now initially it had kept some password which I didn't know, but Kerberos server itself internally will know that. But as a user, to know it, I've kept a simple password by resetting by using change password. So now what I have to do, as I said, if I'm a user called Aman, when I'm trying to connect, I can enter my password interactively. But kadmin cannot enter its password interactively. So we have changed its password because I also need to know the password. So what I have to do is I have to add this one -k. I'm saying where Kerberos krb kadmin key tab. I'm saying I'm creating a key tab in which what I'm doing, kadmin /admin, right? Because we changed the password, I'm entering that into a file kdb admin here. Look at this, right? So two things I'm entering. See, change pwd. You got the point. See this command. Command is ktadd keytab add. I'm giving the keytab path. I'm saying key admin and these two ones for which I have changed the password. Change password is a password for that. So why I did that, right? If you remember, right? In the slide which I was explaining you here. So what is a service key tab? What is a key tab? Key tab is storing the secret for your user or a service or a host. So if it is for a user, let's say I'm an Aman user, I say, let's say when I'm trying to log into any system, it will prompt me for a password. Because I'm a user, I can interactively add in my password. But kadmin, when we start a kadmin service on this node, right, it will wait on a prompt for me to enter a password, right? So I will need to add that password into where? Into a file from where it can read. If in Linux, I'm not sure, you might have done let's say I set up a SSL in HTTP server and I enter a passphrase for some private key, and I try to start an HTTP server. It will wait for a prompt for me to enter a password. When I say service HTTPD start, interactively, right? Or what I can do, I can set up a password file and give a path to that. It will read from that file. Same thing we are doing here, right? So why I'm giving this path, right? I could have given any path. So this is from this file. See here, this line. So I'm saying key admins, key tab is at this path. I'm not saying it's by default this way. So by default, it will look for a key tab at this path for admin. So we have changed the password. We have changed the password to an easy password which we can remember, because we need to connect from some other node as well to connect to kadmin. So if I'm connecting to this kadmin locally, right? So kadmin is your Kerberos administration console. So one I can do kadmin dot local, means I'm sitting on the same node where Kerberos is configured. I'm doing kadmin local. It doesn't ask me for a password because I'm sitting on that node itself. But if I connect from any node, let's say I go to another node, this node, and I try to connect from here, it will prompt me for a password, right? Presently it will not work because we have to start the service. So now what I will do, I will do chk config, first thing, krb5 kdc on and kadmin on. Two services we are starting. So the krb5-server package gave me these two services, krb5 kdc and kadmin. So I will do service krb5 kdc restart, right? See, the service started, and I will do kadmin as well, restart. So now what is happening there is the key tab which we have given here, this key tab will be used by the kadmin daemon, right? We have started the kadmin daemon, if you see. So when it starts, it knows what is my password. How it knows? From this file, kadmin file. And why we needed to do that? Because we changed the password of this to something which we know, which we can remember, right? By default, it would have kept some complex password, this and that, which we don't know, right? Because I need to connect to this one from some file, some place, okay? So which place we will see, right? So now I've created that. So let's say I create a principal here, right? So let's say kadmin local. Let's create a principal. So I say list prince. Presently you can see it has this. Let's create Aman. Add prince Aman, right? I'm creating my user Aman. It is prompting me for a password, right? Again, it's a very detailed topic. See, we are not applying any policy here. We are applying only default policies. Policies could be your password based, your expiration based. I can say when my token expires, this and that, right? But we are going with default policy, defaulting to no policy, right? So if I do again list prince, you can see there's a user called Aman here. Right, this user called Aman here. So now let's look at on this node only. su-aman. I'm not sure if the user is there or not. So this user has nothing to do with this user Aman in the Kerberos one, right? So this user which I am having here on my Linux machine may be coming from your LDAP or a local user. But if I do klist here, you see here it has no credentials. It does not have any ticket. But if I do kinit here, it will go to Kerberos server and see it's asking me for a password. See, I've got a Kerberos ticket now from the Kerberos server. I did kinit. So how it know where is my Kerberos server? Because we configured Kerberos only on this node and we have etc krb5 file here. So krb5.config file is the file which is telling me which is my Kerberos realm, where should I go and contact. It knows this is my domain, these are the place I should go and contact. I'm sitting on the same node, krb file is here. But if I do it this same operation from other node, it will not work because there's no krb5 file there, right? So what I will do first thing, so I will do scp etc krb5.conf. I will copy to, let's say, nn1.cluster1.com /etc krb5.conf, right? So I'm copying the Kerberos file which we have on this node where we have configured Kerberos. I'm copying it to another node which is nn1.cluster1.com. I've copied there, right? So now let's go to the other node now. Right, I'm on nn1 now. cat /etc krb5.conf. I've copied that file from there. So now let's do su-aman here, klist, right? I can do kdestroy, gone, kinit. Kdestroy means it will destroy your keys. See, the principal has come back. Aman at that node. So now I SSH from this node. SSH to which node? Repo at whatever node was, right? I have that token with me. It will not prompt me for password, right? So in our previous step, what we have done, we have set up SSH passphrase-less key access by using SSH private key and public key. But now once I have Kerberos configured, the other node repo also knows Kerberos, and then one also knows which is my Kerberos. Once I have a ticket, I can connect from this node to another node without being prompted for a password, right? Without being prompted for a password. Okay, so now let's come back. Okay, let me come out of here. So I'm sitting on node nn1. I want to do some operations which we were doing there, right? So let's say if I do keyadmin.local, it will not work here because there will be no local here, because local is a part of your Kerberos server package and it will connect only on that node. Only kadmin is a part of a workstation package. So if I want to connect to kadmin-p, I will give -p is the principal admin slash admin, right? Kadmin, right? Kadmin slash admin, right? So now it is prompting more for password. Okay, I've set the wrong password or what? Let me check on another node. Not local. List prints. Right, I'm not sure. Let's change the password once more. I'm not sure what was the password I typed quickly. So let me just myself. Right. So now I think I might have done some typo while typing the password. What is slash? Why it is in temp? So temp is the directory which is cleaned. See here, this is your ticket credential store, right? So this is the place which will be cleaned periodically, and this is a temp file, right? Temp file means it will have a temporary life, right? 8 hours by default. So it is, everything is going to that slash temp. It will be your cache file, right? It is your cache file which is storing the ticket which you got. Okay, so now see, I'm connected here to kadmin from which node? From my other node, and then one. See, I'm giving kadmin-p principal. I'm telling which kadmin admin. So how it is knowing where I should go? From krb.conf file. It is prompting me for a password. I enter the password of it. Again, I've typed wrong. Okay, so now here I can do the same thing. See, so you got the idea. Keyadmin is a utility to manage your Kerberos principals. I can connect from the node itself where I have installed Kerberos by using kdb local. If I need to connect from any other node, I have to use this way. So for that, I have to know a password for that user, right? Keyadmin admin. How we know that password? We have reset that, and we added that to a krb file locally, Keytab file there, so that it knows what is my password. So this is a simple step of Kerberos, correct? So we have added a user. Now another thing which we need to do here is, this is a simple user, right? So I need to add for which user? Let's say add prince. Oh, where is my mouse? Oh, disconnection happened or what? Okay. Just give me a second. By mistake, I closed down my machine. Just give me a second. Okay. -p kadmin -admin, right? So now what I need to do, I need to add principals for each service. Let's say I'm running HDFS by HDFS user, I'm running yarn by yarn user, I may be running MapReduce by a MapReduce user, Hive by a Hive user, right? So whichever user I need, right? It can be any user. I'm just saying, giving an example. It can be Aman user by which you are running an HDFS service. So, but in our case, we have a, let's say, a Hadoop user or an HDFS user. I add that user, right? And when I say add prince, it is asking me for a password to enter. I've set some password for that user, right? So now what will happen is, if I try to use this HDFS user in Hadoop cluster, what will happen is it will ask me for a password. Who will enter that password, right? Service itself, HDFS service cannot enter the password. So what I have to do is I have to store this password, whichever I have given to it, into a special file and tell Hadoop, read your password for this user from this file, right? Which is a Keytab file. Correct? So how we do that, right? So, okay, so first we have added a user principal. Now we can add host principal as well, right? Host principal means I can do add prince. Now what is happening here is, for example, when I'm creating a headless user, right? Let's say SDFS user, Aman user. These are users. Let's say Aman is actually a real user. SDFS may not be a user which you need to log in with, right? Let's say this might be a service user. Aman might be a real user, Nilesh might be a real user. So their password should be easy to remember because we have to share it, right? Some meaningful passwords, right? Aman and Nilesh. But SDFS password could be any random number generated, right? Or a host password could be any random number generated password. Correct? And that password will be supplied by a file. So for example, host password, right? Host password means, let me explain you one more thing which I have missed here is, so when this client is connecting to AS, right, as I was saying, it authenticates itself. What does it mean is, it checks whether this client is known to this Kerberos server or not, right? How it checks that? There will be a host principal existing for that node, right? So what is that principal? Add prince hyphen random key means this is a host principal. I'm not entering, I don't want to enter a very simple password like Aman, Nilesh and all. I'm saying generate some random password yourself, right? What I'm saying, generate some random password yourself. For which use? nn1.cluster1.com. See, now it has not asked me for password because I've given the option here random key. I could have given for Aman also, but then I would have not known the password. Then what would I would have to do? I have to export that whatever password it has generated to a file, and that file I have to give to Aman user rather than typing my password. Right? So now I say list principal. See, there's a host principal created. Look at this the way it will be host name and this. So this is not a headless one because it is tied to a host name. So this is how we have created that principal. So in my cluster, I may have name node 1, data node 1, RM1, so many nodes. So I need to create a principal for each. I need to create a principal for each. Right? So in my case, I have a name node, for example. Name node will be running a name node service. Which user it will be running that name node service? Yes, correct. We need to create for each service also, right? Host also, service also. Service will be, let's say, your HTTP, right? So I will be using that same key. Go up. Instead of host, I will be saying, let's say, HTTP for a service also, right? So a service does not mean, let's say, a yarn separately and all, right? Although yarn is a service, Hive is a service, HBase is a service, but I can run everything by a single user as well, right? Let's say STFS user. For example, let me show you here list. Let me delete that. List prints, del prints. Let me delete this principal STFS, HDFS. Yes, right. I've deleted a principal, right? So now what I can do here is, see, I can add that principal because I will say HDFS. Now it's not a headless principal. Why it's not a headless principal? Because now I am tying that HDFS user name to a node name node service. All right, like this. See here. This is a headless user. Initially, HDFS was a headless user. Now it is not a headless user, but it is a service principal. This is a host principal. So now this is a user principal. This is a service principal. The third one is a host principal. So similarly, I can have yarn slash node name, hive slash node name, something like that. Correct? So now let me delete this. I'm deleting this. We will create all. So we have to do this step for each node. Right, so I will be doing through a script, right, which I put in GitHub. So we'll be doing host NN1, DN1, DN2, DN3, DN4. Then HTTP also we'll be doing, right, or all these commands we'll be doing, right. So now, and we will be exporting that because we are saying here rand key, right, random key. So it will be having some random password, long password. So that long password, what we'll do, that long password we will export into a key tab, right? And that key tab we will tell to the service where to read that from, because we are saying random key, so it will be a very long complex password which will not be able to remember or type. So we will be saying it from a key, right? So but let me show you one more thing here, which is Aman user, right? So to make the concept more clear to you, so we are having that Aman user, and I want to add that Aman user into a key tab, right? So what I mean is list prints. So I have a Aman user here, correct? So what we are doing till now is we are, when I do kinit as Aman user, it prompts me for a password. I enter that password. So it's not mandatory, right? So I can store this user's password into some file, right? So let's say the file is, let's create a file. I say xst hyphen no random key. I have to give this no random key while exporting. If I don't give hyphen no random key while exporting, it will change the password of the user. It will reshuffle. Let's say my Aman user's password is Aman, and if I do simply a kt add command, which we have done in